talked about making a presentation, Murder by Mulch. I thought it was a great idea. If you drive around town, you see it all over Clarksville. It just spreads like wildfire. It seems like when one house does it, another one says, oh, wow, let's do it too. And it just continues to go on and on and on. And I don't think people realize the outcomes of what happens when you spread too much mulch, and also how you do it wrong. So as we go through the videos, and the first video, of course, was a dead tree, and that's what happens when you actually murder your tree. It's murder by mulch. When you take a walk in the forest, and everybody loves the forest and all the greenways and the parkways and everything, you don't see man spread mulch. You see wonderful leaf litter that is given by the trees. It's all natural, it's organic. Leaf litter decomposes. It's in the first anywhere from 2 to 4 inches of the ground, and it helps to actually nurture the tree. It gives it nutrients as it breaks down, of course, and it spreads through the trees and the tree root system and helps give life to the tree, and makes it where the tree can actually sustain pretty much anything. We as humans tend to be the worst offenders for our trees, our urban trees. Happens all the time. I've gone out this morning several times, and I looked at 4 different trees this morning, and each tree that I actually looked at was human induced problems. Whether it be pesticides or anything else, we're the worst offenders for ruining a tree. And that being said, I'd like to share with you some about mulch and different ways of doing it. My inspiration for the day: a nation that destroys its soil destroys itself. Forests are the lungs of our land. The air and giving fresh strength to our people, by Franklin D. Roosevelt. We're in a crisis now where soil is an issue. Organic matter does make soil, and we need to be made aware. Of course, most of y'all are master gardeners, that we do need our soil, and it's part of living. It helps give life, and we need to make sure that we preserve it. Benefits of properly applied mulch. If you look at the picture, that is a wonderful picture of the properly applied mulch. That particular person actually cut a little circle around his tree, removed the turf, actually applied the mulch around it. It's at the correct depth. Each tree is different. Sometimes you want to spread a little more around the base of the tree. Sometimes you want to spread a little less. I mean, it's up to the homeowners about how much you actually want to put around the tree. It actually helps insulate the soil, and it helps provide a buffer from heat and cold temperatures. You definitely want to be able to keep your roots and your soil moist underneath the tree. Keeps out weeds to help prevent root competition. Also prevents soil compaction. I've had a lot of people say they just spread mulch underneath trees just to keep people from walking underneath and compressing the soil, which actually compresses the root system. Makes sense to me. And it also reduces lawnmower and string trimmer damage. If anybody's ever looked at most of the trees, and I know some of the parks that we have, our guys, which they're doing a lot better job now, have been susceptible to string trimmer damage. Once you gouge the outer cambrium part of a tree and it tries to heal itself, sometimes it will, sometimes it won't, but a tree can really get stressed, just like we as people get stressed every single day. We have to learn to heal ourselves, and trees are no different. And their outer skin is the actual outer part that actually helps sustain that tree. Look familiar? Everybody's seen it. It's called the cone of death. Most of our homeowners, have never been taught how to properly apply mulch. And much like a volcano, it heats up the tree, causes damage by heat, retains water. It helps, actually makes the tree rot. It's not good for the tree. The tree can't breathe. There's a multitude of different things that can happen. You just want to say no to mulch volcanoes. Here's another one again. It's basically an improper technique where the mulch is piled high around the trunk. You don't want to do that. Mulching takes the benefits. Mulching turns them into negatives. Water retention is a prime example. It actually retains the water, and granted, it sheds water like an umbrella, which is what we don't want it to do. We actually want it to hold moisture to the ground. We want the tree to be able to thrive and live and actually breathe. Some people don't know that mulch volcanoes actually turn sour. You can go by your tree, and if it's mulch volcano, you have this sour smell. It's caused by anaerobic conditions. It lacks oxygen, created by thick layers of mulch, and that's something you do not want. Keep in mind, you want to keep mulch off your tree trunks. Once again, to the left, it shows an incorrect way and method of actually mulching your tree. Note that it is like a volcano, once again. And to your right is the correct way to actually do it. You want to make sure that flare on the bottom of the tree can actually see sunlight. It needs to breathe. And when you keep those two things in mind, then your tree will possibly make it and it will survive. Causes diseases, rot, and you could possibly end up with a dead tree. Effects of mulch volcanoes: you've got increased susceptibility to insects and diseases. It's caused by mulch irritation on the trunk of the tree. It makes a girdling root system. It's a condition where smaller roots actually wrap around a dominant root, choking it and not allowing the tree to absorb nutrients. If anybody has never seen this, go down to the main part of Clarksville downtown across from Public Square, right there in front of the mayor's office. There's been some contractors that have been applying mulch to those trees for years. We've been working with them. The roots are actually winding around those beautiful cherry trees out front, and they're actually choking them. I hate to admit that it's happened, but it was long before I got here, so I don't feel that bad. I know that's all bad to say, but it's an issue, and that could be a very good, like I said, go down and look, and you'll see what I'm talking about. They pile it high, they pile it deep, and they make this small little volcano look to it, and a lot of people think it looks nice. But I'm constantly running around after them after they've done it, and I pull the mulch away from the tree. It's all over town where they mulch these trees. You also get rodent issues. When you pile it high against the trunks of the tree, of course, it creates habitats for rodents, and they chew on the tree's bark, and also leads to the demise of the tree. You get a lot of root rot from excess moisture, and the fact is you really don't need more than 2 to 3 inches of mulch in depth. You shouldn't have your mulch come closer than 2 to 3 inches away from your actual tree or plant. You can use this for shrubs also, whether it be trees or shrubs. You can use the same thing. What it looks like and why it's bad. Here on the left, we have a wonderful mulch volcanoing. Don't know if the homeowner knew what he or she was doing. It looks like the only tree that I saw, I didn't see them in the backyard, so I guess they were just doing it for a front yard effect. Then when you look at this other picture, it actually shows, this one, it doesn't look like they applied mulch for for maybe a year or so, or maybe they hadn't got to it yet. But if you actually look at the tree, you can start to see all the roots that are actually coming up from the ground into the up above the surface of the ground. The reason those roots actually come up from the surface or from the underground and go straight up, it's easier for them to go up than it is for them to go down if you keep applying that mulch. You'll get a lot of feeder roots that'll actually start coming off the edge of that tree, and those feeder roots will actually come up into the mulch, and they'll start seeking the moisture of the mulch. The only bad part about that is not only will it cause girdling of your roots, but when you get into a really bad drought and your mulch is not getting any type of moisture whatsoever from rains, and you haven't been watering them like they're supposed to, they'll just try to stay within that mulch area and seek that what little moisture they can get from that mulch. And that's what causes a lot of them to go straight up. But it's not a very good practice. Here's some more girdling root systems. The one on the left, you can see the actual root that's actually come around to the side there. Can you fix it? Yes, you can fix it. You can make it look a lot better than what it is. I had a lady this morning that she had the same problem. She just got the house in November. We were working to fix her girdling roots on her weeping cherry. it had been volcano mulched. So we had to find the root flare first for her weeping cherry and get all that mulch back off of it. And then we took a rake and actually pulled it back, probably about, I'm gonna say a good 3.5, 4 feet away from that tree to see what we were working with. The small feeder roots, we cut off. The bigger roots that she had, we went through, we did cut one, which looked much like one of the girdling root systems there on your left, but we cut only one, and you have to be very careful when you're selecting whatever root that you're wanting to cut to make sure it's not a main tree root. But if we had not cut this one girdling root, it would have suffocated her weeping cherry, and it would have met its demise also. If you're looking to the right, you can see the girdling roots, the buried root flare. A lot of people don't understand there is a flare to the bottom of the tree that has to remain above ground. In this particular case, on this tree, I tried marking out where the root system actually was. And you've got girdling roots actually coming around with the lines at the very bottom for about 12 inches and up. They put too much mulch, so you wanted to get that away from the 12 inches. And then you want to be actually to spread that mulch back a little bit and find that buried root flare. Once you find the main roots that are at the very bottom of that tree, you get to the part where yes, you can see the tree and you're doing what you're supposed to in regards to mulching it correctly. Here's what happens if you leave your volcano mulch over your tree. It created a dark, moist environment for this particular tree, and it allowed diseases and insects to attack the inside of the tree, and the tree just rotted from the inside out, and it just actually fell over. Does it happen all the time? I've got trees I've watched for the last probably 10 years, and I haven't seen it happen. They're all volcano mulched, but it does happen eventually. One day that tree will fall over and it will die. It just, have to have the right conditions and the right amount of water and soil, which in the last couple of years, we've had some unusual weathers and stressors for our trees. And if you're mulching it with volcano mulch, along with those weather conditions, we've had excessive rain. We've had rain for pretty much, there's we even have more. There's no telling how much rain we've had at this point. And trees haven't been used to this much rain. They're treating it like the Amazon rainforest, and they're sucking it all up. They're really happy. The base of them is really, really wet. And like I said, if you add this mulch, you're just adding insult to injury, creating a volcano mulch around them. So get that mulch back and see if we can't make these trees live a little bit. It might dry it out, and you might catch it in time to keep your tree from actually dying. Not all mulch is created equal. You've got two major forms of mulch. You've got organic or you've got inorganic. Organics, you've got wood chips, you've got pine needles, hardwood, soft bark, cocoa hulls, leaves, compost. As these actually decompose, you're improving your soil structure and you're actually increasing your soil fertility. You got organic mulches, they all decompose at different times and different rates, and they do require periodic reapplication. Organic mulches are more preferable due to their soil enhancing qualities, and sometimes they can be expensive and sometimes they can't. I know the price of mulch has gone up excessively since we've entered the COVID stage. Also gardening soil has too, if you can even find it. I went to one Lowe's looking for organic, gardening soil. They didn't even have any one day, or mulch. And I guess everybody was taking care of their homes, which is a great thing. But you have to pick the type of organic mulch that you want. Inorganic mulches, gravel, stone chips, river rock, and rubber, they don't provide the same benefits, and they do not decompose. I've got a house I bought. It's gorgeous in the back, has a beautiful garden, comes off the back part of the house, but they mulched it with rock. It's anywhere from a small pebble to some really big rocks behind there. It seems like the rock actually helps dry out the soil, and then there's nothing, I can't even plant anything in it, and it dries it up. So I'm forever, when it's not raining, having to go back there and actually turn on the hose and get that rock and the soil underneath it moist again. So I really don't recommend river rock. I mean, if you can help it. But some people do like the look. But you just remember that they're inorganic mulches, and they will not decompose, so they're not very good for your plants. Composition of mulch is very important. Each type of mulch has a unique history, water retention properties, and decomposition rates. You've got several different types of mulch. You've got cocoa. You've got pine needles. There's various different types. I tried to include, different pictures of different types, and I should have put it on here. Should just not went by the pictures. But when you go to your Lowe's or Home Depot or whatever, just ask them what type of different mulches they have. Generally, they used to keep a picture over the register of what different type of mulches they had, so you could just pick, and then you wouldn't have to go back there and get it, and then you can just pay for it and have them loaded up out back, which is awesome. Properly mulched trees should look like donuts and not little muffins or volcanoes. Don't pile it out in a cone shape. Spread the mulch out evenly. Don't let the mulch touch the trunk at all. You're going to have a mulch-free zone for 2 to 3 inches away from the trunk. It's going to look more, like I said, like a donut. Don't use too much mulch. Your mulch should only be 3 to 4 inches deep. Don't pile the mulch and spread it too thick, could damage your tree. And the trunk should flare out the base, not look straight as a telephone pole when you're looking at it. When we do the trees, the newly planted trees, we have an arboretum in Liberty Park that's next to the river. It is a certified arboretum for 35 trees, and recently we've just added 5 more trees. We're trying to get up to, I believe, to 65. We're working on it. When we do our mulch, I generally do the rule of 3s. I do 3 inches thick, and I do 3 inches in feet away from the tree, or 3 inches wide, and then I do 3 inches away from the actual base of the tree. That way, if it doesn't touch the base of the tree, it won't cause the tree to rot. And that's generally our standard for action mulching, is the rule of 3s. Everybody's different. You may want your mulch to spread out further. You may want just a smaller pile of mulch. But just remember to keep your mulch off your tree. Some of your other tips, you've got finely shredded mulches that decompose faster and actually require replenishing more often. So the smaller the mulch, the more you may have to replenish it. Before replenishing your mulch each season, check your depth. You may have some old mulch needs to be removed, add a new layer. That's up to you. Adding new mulch over old mulch in successive years is like applying too deep a layer. Sometimes it's not good to reapply over old mulch. Sometimes it's just good to break all the old off or to the side. Actually use it as possibly just like organic for your tree, and just put new back over the part of that. You've got the appearance of old mulch. It can be refreshed by breaking up any matted layers by hand or with a rake. Sometimes I just use a hand shovel and I break up the matted layers, and then I'll just reapply a new mulch over it as I scatter the old mulch around the tree. Makes great nutrients for it. Here's a picture showing you kind of how to do it. This is basically a medium-sized shade tree. You don't want to cover those root flares if you can see those sticking out. You've got 1 to 2 inches aged all tree mulch. Kind of want to stir it once a month. Sometimes when it rains, it actually sticks the mulch together, and some mulches tend to be a little bit kind of impenetrable by the rain. So if you kind of go out and just look at your tree and, stir it around, kick it around, however you want to do it. If you're walking on it every now and then, it's not going to hurt anything, but do not drive any type of, machinery over it. Take a rake out with you. Check your trees. Inspect your trees. You're going to want to inspect, if you've got some really nice trees in your yard, you're going to want to inspect them anyhow to make sure that the health overall is doing well for all of your trees. If you're actually mulching, you would want to do 4 to 5 feet. You want to do about 10 feet on this particular tree. You've got 1 foot around this particular tree that it's got 1 foot. It's a no mulch zone. And then he's actually come out 10 feet. So whatever your tree is, you can do half of your diameter breast height, which is right about 20 inches that you're looking at. And If you figure a 23-inch diameter breast height tree, that should only put you roughly about 11.5 inches or excuse me, in feet, or excuse me, 11 feet, 11.5 feet, excuse me, in mulch as you're pulling it back away from the base of your tree. And like I said, it just depends on the homeowner. This guy really liked to put a whole lot of mulch around his trees. They did a great job. His trees looked healthy, and they're absolutely gorgeous. So, like I said, it's up to the homeowner how much they want to actually get away from the tree and how far they want to go out. You can correct over mulch trees. This is something we've been doing for quite a while since I've been here. If you believe you have a problem with your mulch trees, you can carefully dig with a hand trowel, assess your mulch, pull it away from the tree, put you a piece of tape around the base there and show where that mulch actually was. You can freshen old mulch, break up the compacted layers that develop. You want to pull that mulch back away from the tree's trunk until the root flare is exposed, which is the very base of that tree that you're actually looking at, where the bottom of that spade actually touches is the very bottom. You want to spread your mulch evenly out to the tree's drip line. That's the old mulch, checking to make sure the depth doesn't exceed 4 inches. This particular tree here, you can tell it's probably breathing a sigh of relief when you're looking at it in the picture on the far right, going, wow, you did me right. I really appreciate it. So you've increased the likelihood and the chance of that tree actually surviving at this point. It looks like it's been volcano mulch for quite a while, and it takes a while sometimes to actually dry out those trunks. But like I said, when you actually pull back that mulch, look for any type of holes or decay or anything else. Make sure and inspect your tree, make sure it's in good shape. Get that mulch back where it belongs, which is away from the base of that tree, and mulch it right. How to fix girdle roots. I've had people ask me if I cut a root, will the tree die? Depends on what kind of root you're actually cutting. The picture on the left is a maple that had a girdling tree root. I took a chisel and a hammer and I removed one similar to that on some trees downtown. The trees are fine, but with that girdling root is actually smothering that tree, and you don't want those roots to actually fuse to the trunk. So as long as you can identify the main roots and we're coming off the flares of the tree, then you can probably remove those girdling roots. I would only recommend doing 20% of the above ground tree roots at once. Your tree is just like you, it's got to recover. So if you do some type of surgery on it, you've got to recover, your tree's got to recover. And there's no guarantee that removing a girdling root won't kill a tree. Like I said, I want to remove the root that's damaging or infringing on a nearby tree, and some people just do it for aesthetic reasons. The tree to the right is a red maple. It was mulched up pretty high, and you see the girdling roots that were revealed up underneath there. Did go through and kind of take some of those out, and the best time to do it, I would do it in the fall when the tree's asleep or over the winter months, and make sure that your tree is really saturated. It's had a lot of water. You want it to be in prime condition when you start working with roots, just like you would if you were actually pruning that tree. You want to make sure that everything about that tree is not going to stress it when you go to remove a few girdled roots or actually trim it also. So make sure that you actually take care of the tree before you do this. Once again, I put a couple pictures on how to properly apply mulch. And step one, you've got your width times your length. Figure out the square footage of your space. People are like, well, how much mulch do I buy? Depends on the size of your tree. You want to prepare your area for mulching. So I've had some people remove the turf grass around their tree to put the mulch down. I've had some people that didn't want to remove it. But you want to prepare the area. Some people will just go and spray a weak solution of Roundup around the tree to get rid of the grass. I do not like herbicides. I'm not an herbicide person. I don't like applying them. You know, not only do I think they're bad for the tree or anything around it, they're not good for people either. And I really just don't condone the use of herbicide. There's other ways to figure it out. Some people put newspaper around a tree and they poke holes in it to see if they can't get rid of some of the turf grass and stuff underneath it. Some people use some plastic, black plastic, but your tree, keep in mind your tree's going to actually breathe while you're doing this. So as you're preparing the area to actually put the mulch on there, be careful how you do that also. So step 3, you're actually spreading the mulch, and step 4, actually water it down. Mulch is kind of fluffy. Once you start putting it on the tree, sometimes you think, oh, well, that's enough. But until you water it down a couple of times, you really don't know how much you've got. Mulch compresses as it gets more rain up on it. And the more you water it, the more it rains. You look at it and like, well, I should put a whole lot more mulch on there. So water it down, make sure you get it the way you want it to look, and for the depth and everything. Some other tips, and I see this a lot with mulching. I had one woman contact me and she said, look, she said, my tree's dying. She said, I built a flower bed around it and raised it and put mulch and flowers around it. That's nice, but try not to add a raised border around your tree and fill it with soil or mulch. If you're adding a flower bed, remember thirsty roots do draw up from the water, draw up all the water, and heavy branches actually prevent sunlight from reaching the soil. It makes it tough for other plants to actually thrive. Don't damage your trees while you're planting. There's some people that say, hey, I want to put some beautiful flowers or something underneath my trees, and that's great. Just remember that some trees like white oak, hickory actually send down really deep roots, while others, such as maple and cypress, have roots just beneath the surface, or in some cases they extend above the top of the ground. You'll just have to plant the flowers in between the tree roots and keep going, lightly mulch those as you go, and you should be good. Before you choose your plants for underneath your trees, also observe the amount of shade under the tree at different times of the day. Remember that a lot of times there's only dappled sunlight under a tree, so you'll need some shade-loving plants up underneath your tree. And are there any questions? I didn't mean to make it so short, Carla.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay. I think you went through some great information there. I'm going to go, I don't know what that, I'm going to go ahead and look in the chat box. Neil Stringer asked, will this be available for download? Yeah, okay, he just put his email in there. So yes, if you provide your email address, I will send you a link to the presentation now that this is all over. And I did make a couple notes, Katie, that people might be interested in. We've really got to watch your landscapers, those who are providing lawn care. Strike 3 is a herbicide that is used on lawns for broadleaf weed control, and it is one of the worst because it's systemic and it can be taken up by the root system in your tree and cause damage over time. And now that's one way that it can damage. The other way that we see this damage is, from drift, like a 2,4-D, a broadleaf herbicide. When that is planted or applied to the lawn areas, we get a lot of off-target drift is basically what we call it. And yes, over time, if those trees are being damaged year after year after year from these herbicides, yes, they can go into decline and it can cause them to die. The herbicide may not be the main thing that killed them, but it started the damage. Then it weakened the tree, and from there on you get the insects and the diseases that start to come in. So I know that's one thing that I look at a lot. And
I actually had that happen this morning to a lady's weeping cherry. After doing the tree NCIS is what I call it. I couldn't, when I first looked at the tree, I'm like, oh boy, you got curling leaves. One side has actually died. The landscaper, or the homeowner beside her, I asked her, had he applied any type of herbicide trying to kill out some stuff on the lawn? And she said no. She said actually it was a turf grass that I won't name, company that had actually sprayed the grass, and the cherry tree had caught drift. Cherry tree was already stressed. Then they had actually put some type of perforated plastic underneath the tree out back, which I found unusual. I had to dig that up and look at it. And water could go through it. But the tree was so stressed out and it wasn't pruned correctly. And then it had borers in it also. So it had this thick, gummy, clear-looking gel coming out of the bark on this cherry tree. So I gave her some best recommendations for that tree, and she was going to have to talk to her neighbor about not spraying his lawn and getting overdrift from his lawn again. Mm-hmm. So she had lots of stressors for that tree. Yeah. And it was probably about a 25-year-old weeping cherry, and it was gorgeous. I mean, it was beautiful. But her neighbors and her had, it was kind of a mix of the two, had done a lot of things to stress that tree out, and it had been mulched too high. But she did the right thing and had contacted me and was working on fix it. So she was doing great.
Okay. Anne had a comment about pine straw mulch. I think it works very well. I mean, it can develop a little bit of acidity as it breaks down in the soil, but that takes years and years.
Right.
So Katie, any tips on that?
There's a lot of people that like to put it underneath their trees. I don't have a problem with it. And like you said, the pH of the soil may increase with years. I used it on my own yard. In my last house I saw, of course, I lived here 27 years. Mm-hmm. I put it underneath my trees. It was great. I never had a problem with it. Yeah. I held the soil in, kept the moisture in, and it did a great job. Never saw a lot of different type of species of bugs and stuff like I did just regular mulch. I don't know if maybe it was a little bit of a deterrent. I need to kind of look that up and see if it is or not. I don't know if you know anything about it. But,
it may have some deterrent properties to it. Of course, cedar and cypress, those are a lot safer if you're, worried about termites or issues like that. And also, I think Katie mentioned maybe early in her presentation, when you're mulching around the house, to leave a barrier, or no, maybe you were talking about leaving a barrier between the tree trunk and that. Mm-hmm. Okay, I'll go back. If you're mulching up against your house, I would come out maybe 6 to 8 inches and do a layer of rock and then mulch in front of that. And that way you don't have that direct mulch touching your house. So you don't want it touching your house, or that gives an entryway for the termites there.
Right. I've got a flower bed on 2 sides on the back part of my house on either side of the door, and it's right up against the house when I bought the house. Mm-hmm. So I did a little excavation. You know how we are about our yards. And they had actually done it right and had put rock about 6 inches from the actual brick on that house. Mm-hmm. And then they backfilled the back part of that toward the front with soil. Yeah. So that part gets a little dry, but there's, you shouldn't be planting anything in that first 6 inches next to the house anyhow.
Yeah, it's all too close to the house.
Right. But it did. They definitely did it right. Somebody knew what they were doing when they actually built those flower beds. So I left them be. I started once to take them down, and then they had so many different gorgeous things in them. I'm like, man, I'm going to have to put all these plants somewhere else. Yeah. Amount of light and everything underneath there, and I didn't want to do that. So, a little investigation helps. So kind of figure out, what you're dealing with, whether it be a tree or a bush or shrub, a flower, just see what's going on with it.
True. Okay. Does anyone have a favorite mulch? Is a question. Free.
Huh?
Free mulch. That's my favorite kind of mulch.
Yeah, I like free mulch. Now, some tree companies, some tree companies like to offload mulch, which they're actually just chips. Mm-hmm. I've done the free mulch, the free chips from tree companies. I've had to let it sit to get the green out of it. But you got to remember, if you're taking free mulch, as in tree chips, that you're going to get a lot of seeds and poison ivy and grass seeds and just all kinds of different come that mulch. It's not sterilized when you put it on your plants or your tree. Sometimes you're just going to get more problems. So I would go with some type of mulch you can actually buy as a bag mulch, or maybe go to the co-op, or any of these lawn places that actually sell mulch that you can actually trailer off and get that. Used to, I know the Bi-County landfill, I don't think they do anymore, used to grind up trees there and actually give mulch away for free, but I think they stopped that a couple of years ago.
Oh yeah, it's been several years. They had gotten to where they charge you like $10, but they would load, you know, your truck up with as much as it could handle. But no, they don't do that anymore. So we don't have a local source.
Right. And from what I'm understanding, they were actually grinding up, what was it? Some, what they call yellowwood now.
Mm-hmm.
Some, the 2x4s and stuff in there
Mm-hmm.
that were treated, and
Mm-hmm.
it was starting to cause a problem. So they just kind of ex-nayed that really quick, and you can't get it. But free mulch is great, but you never know what you're getting. So think about it before you do it.
Yeah, I think it really depends on the person's preference. You know, the different colors, the texture. You know, I mean, I think that's going to be a personal question there.
Right. I mean,
We did have a comment. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
that's okay. There's black mulch, there's red. I mean, there's all different kinds of mulches. We have found that black mulch is great, but don't wear nice clothes or put anything that you want to keep when you're applying it, because whatever is it they are actually treating that mulch with to make it black does not come out of your clothes very well. We found out, and also that it fades. Black mulch fades and it just looks brown by the time you're done. And so what you're paying for black mulch, you can just go ahead and buy the brown and save yourself a couple of dollars.
Yeah, same with the red. I found it's really pretty, but I mean, you've literally got to replace it every year, so that increases your cost going into your landscape maintenance. So
right, so just stick with the brown in my book, or maybe some pine bark. If you're wanting to make sure that you add organic matter to your trees, try that.
And I guess, let's see, Neil made a comment about leaf mulch. Leaf mulch tracks tracks worms. So, I mean, and that's a good thing in the garden. I like to use the leaf mulch, you know, put it in black bags and let it break down, and then put that on more of my garden setting, or where I'm growing annuals and perennials. I will incorporate that into my gardens every year. But that, you know, that does work good as mulch. I will caution on grass clippings. I've gotten a lot of calls, well, a couple of calls here recently, and I was talking to some other agents. People using grass clippings and even hay products that have been treated with herbicides. They do, you know, these herbicides do have a residual, and they can kill your tomato plants or sensitive plants. Tomatoes and peppers are especially sensitive to herbicides. You know, you may find that your seeds aren't germinating and coming up. Go back and think about where you got your compost material that you put in, because you don't know what is in it. So if you're doing your own composting for your mulch, you know, 6 months to a year, you know, let that break down and then incorporate it into your landscape beds, and it'll be okay.
The leaf mulch, I like leaf mulch. I know people that have multiple trees. I know I have 35 trees in my yard. And last year I blew up all the mulch, and, you know, laugh if you want to, but I put it in a big metal trash can, and I took a weed eater and zoomed it around. Of course, remember, wear your safety glasses. And it come out really good in small particles. And I went back and reapplied it around my trees, around the drip line area. Was there a lot of worms? Yes, but you want worms. Worms are wonderful percolators. They actually keep the ground tilled up. The holes they make it penetrable for water and rain to get down to the roots and down into the soil. You want worms. The problem is, if you don't see a worm in your garden, you've generally got a problem. They're great things. They're an indicator of the health of your soil, and you want worms. So apply that leaf litter mulch. I love it.
Yep. As Katie said, you know, we've got critical things going on right now. God's not making any more land, and the developers are taking it up and building houses and scraping. And so, you know, in your garden, especially new subdivision or something like that, you're going to have to incorporate some compost matter, maybe use some cover cropping methods and such like that to get that soil back alive before you plant your permanent plants in your landscape beds. So that's just something that takes time.
Right. And if you buy a new house, I've noticed,
Oh.
yeah, I hear you. I've had several people, well, I can't get a tree to live. Well, they've scraped all your topsoil off. I mean, I'm sorry, but that was one of the perks of them getting the land is they get $200 some odd a truckload full for scraping off the soil, and they'll turn around and sell it. And you're left with bare bones, plain old red clay dirt that they put your house on. They've added a little sod, and a lot of times your sod doesn't live because there's nothing really any good for it to adhere to. There's no organic matter for it to feed, and your tree has the same problems. I mean, how's it supposed to live without really good nutrients and soil? It can't. So a lot of times before you even plant a tree, you're going to have to spend maybe 2 or 3 years getting that particular spot ready for a tree or for your bushes. You're going to have to work with that soil and incorporate a lot of organic matter and other things that you need and compost to get those areas ready for that particular tree or plant. So if you bought a new house, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
you're going to have to work with it.
Yeah.
So I think you did that, didn't you?
Yes. And I still have, I mean, it's been 5 years and I still have not put all my permanent shrubs out that I want. So I just still do a combination of, it's basically cover cropping in the garden. I use clovers and I plant turnip greens and turnips to break up that soil, and then mainly just turn them over. We eat some of them, but mainly I just plant them to incorporate right back into the garden. Comfrey is another plant that I'm trying to get started that I'm going to use, and that's a healing plant for humans, but it's also a healing plant for the soil. So I want to get that incorporated into my vegetable garden and in my landscapes, and just, like I said, cut and go, till it in, just let it lay on the ground, and then work it back in the soil. So.
Yeah, I know. I've done the same thing. My husband laughed at me the day because I was adding clover mix in with my grass seed that I was in my shade mix that I was putting up underneath my trees. And he's like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "Well," I said, "the soil's a little sparse because of the trees, so I'm looking for something to hold that and bind that soil together so it doesn't wash away here the next year." We've also, whoever had the house first, cut the grass a little low. They had gone 3 inches, which to me is that military gorgeous look for a lawn, but a lot of lawns, you don't need that. So I actually mowed mine 4.5 inches high. I've got a lot of trees. I've got a lot of tree roots. I don't want to blow that soil away from those roots either. You want to retain that soil. Think about it. Plant some grass. Make sure that those trees have enough soil to actually grow in, and it doesn't erode away from those trees and actually expose that root system too. Those trees have to have nutrients. The tree line, the drip line of the edge of that tree is actually where those feeder roots are. And they need those nutrients to actually stabilize and grow and make that tree strong and healthy like they're supposed to. So there's a lot of things you got to think about: soil and mulch and water retention and the right place for the right tree. Make sure if you're not certain about where you want to put a tree at, go to our arboretum down at Liberty Park, 1188 Cumberland Drive. Look at a grown tree down there in our arboretum to see if maybe that's a good fit for your yard. A lot of times when people look at the tree that I tell them about, they go, "Oh, maybe not. That tree's awful big. Maybe I need a smaller one." So I don't mind helping somebody pick out a tree if they need to pick out a tree also that's right for their yard. If anybody needs help with that, just hit me up in an email or call me. Our number here at the office is 931-645-7476. Or you can email me. It's Kathrine.Killebrew at City of Clarksville. If you have any questions or anything else that you need me to look at a tree at, I don't mind doing that either. It's part of my job.
Awesome. Now we do have an interesting question come up. Carla Beals asked, how do we change that requiring builders, developers to maintain the health and integrity of the soil? And I'm afraid that's the $1 million question.
Yes,
I know. basically in Montgomery County, it would take a soil preservation ordinance or getting something like that passed. I don't want to say too much. I can't, um, get me in trouble.
Right.
Um, they do have standards that they are supposed to follow,
Mm-hmm.
but those are minimal standards.
Right.
And there are going to be contractors and developers that stay within those minimum guidelines, build those houses, bam, bam, bam. And then there's going to be others that are going to take a little time, try to preserve what you want preserved, for your new home site. So it really does mean working with an individual builder and knowing the areas that you want to protect. You got large trees on the property, they've got to be marked properly. All these things have to be set very clearly when you're building a new house. But if it's a developer building those houses in a subdivision and you're just buying a pre-built house, you get what you get, unfortunately.
Right. I know the other day I was driving down Needmore Road. I needed to go to Billy Dunlop Park, and behind the fire station, right before you make a left, Billy Dunlop, I about swallowed my teeth. There's about 100 acres that has been clear cut, and
Mhm.
we're going to put condos there, from what I'm understanding.
Mhm.
And there were some gorgeous trees. There were some mother trees that were in 23, inches in diameter, if not bigger. And they just logged it all to the ground. Now they're working on scraping the soil off. And then that's how, some of the developers do it. I mean, they're trying to get the most out of the dollar that they can get out of that land.
Mhm.
There was an old cabin there, old barn, and it was all probably somebody's old home site, and they probably lost it. Probably they didn't have any errors, or something happened, or owed some taxes against it. I'm not sure, but there should be some type of something that you could do for your home, and for the developers not to get rid of the trees and stuff. I know we do have some landscaping ordinance for the city of Clarksville. Building codes has to make sure that they enforce those. You'll have to look on the cityofclarksville.com website under ordinances and see what those ordinances actually are. They actually uphold most of those ordinances for those, where most of the landscaping and some of the trees are concerned, in reference to developers and contractors.
Mhm.
Off the top of my head, I mean, I can't really tell you what those are, and I don't know how to stop the whole process. It's gone on so long. I wouldn't even know where to begin to start.
Mhm.
But
Mhm. And
Montgomery County's lost a lot.
yeah. And with Katie and I, with our positions, we educate, we don't regulate.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that we couldn't be a voice for the community. And that's really what it takes to make change. It would take somebody, going to the regional planning commission or a group working together to get this change. So, it would really take some work and some effort.
Right. It would
Not
take the people of Montgomery County.
right.
Your citizens are actually your best voice. I've found out in the years that I've been here.
Mhm. Yep. Okay, some good questions, good conversation there. If no one else has any questions, I don't see anything else in the chat box. Excuse me. I think I'm going through puberty here. My voice keeps changing this morning. um, so this has been a great program. I really appreciate it, Katie, and I hope everyone else enjoyed it. And I've got your emails in the chat. We'll record this, and I will get that distributed out as soon as I can. And hopefully we'll see you in August for another talk.
That sounds great.
All right. Thank you.
Oh, you're more than welcome. Everybody else have a great day.
Yep. Everybody have a good day. Get out and enjoy the sunshine. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. How many people do we have?
We had 11.
Okay.
11 high quality people.
11's better than none.
Yes, exactly. Yep. It's hard to compete with the sunshine.
Hello.
Yes, it is.
Hi. Hi.
I'm watching y'all from about 40 foot in the air.
Oh, you are? Well, that's pretty
Yeah.
cool.
Y'all had a good show.
Well, all right. Thank you. Who are we hearing from here?
I think that's my other half.
Oh, is that
It is.
Chris?
Yeah.
Okay. I seen Christopher, and it didn't click. So.
Yeah, I got to change that. I usually don't go by that.
It's all good. All right. Well, thank you all. I'm going to go ahead and end the meeting now and work on getting everything, the recording saved and everything. Thank you.
You're welcome. Carly, do you want me to send you these slides or?
Yes, if you wouldn't mind. You might have to use a Dropbox or something like that.
Okay, I think we share a Dropbox somewhere, don't we?
Yeah, I think we do.
All right, I'll
right.
put them in a Dropbox and look for it and stick them in there.
Okay, thanks.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.